Good evening, everyone. Let's start with a moment of silence. Just 5 seconds. Ready? Go. Okay. What happened in that silence? Did your mind go blank? Or did you suddenly become aware of your own breathing? Maybe you wondered if you were doing this silence thing right? Perhaps you noticed an itch or a thought about what you need to buy at the grocery store tomorrow. In that moment, you likely experienced a shift. You stopped just looking out at the world and you started looking in at yourself. That shift has a name. Psychologists call it self-awareness. Tonight, we're going to explore that internal spotlight. We'll look at what happens when we turn it on, why it sometimes feels good, why it sometimes feels terrible, and why some people seem to live their whole lives with that spotlight stuck on full beam. Part 1. What is self-awareness? Psychologists Duval and Wicklund, and later Carver and Scheier, define self-awareness as a state where you focus your attention on yourself as an object. You become the observer and you become the observed. Think of it like this. Usually, you are the camera filming the movie of your life. But in a state of self-awareness, you step out from behind the camera, walk around to the front, and see yourself on the screen. You become an object of your own attention. And here's the most important part. Once you see yourself on that screen, you can't help but compare what you see to the ideal version you have in your head. The actual, how you are behaving right now. The standard, how you should be behaving. This comparison is the engine of self-awareness. And it usually ends with us feeling like we're falling a little short. Part 2. The 2 flavors of the spotlight. But not all self-awareness is the same. There are 2 distinct types depending on which part of you you're looking at. First, private self-awareness. This is when you focus on the invisible parts of yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your values, your memories. It's an internal focus. Second, public self-awareness. This is when you focus on yourself as a social object. You become aware of how you appear to others. Your clothes, your facial expression, the impression you're making. Part 3. The consequences of private self-awareness. So, what happens when we turn this internal spotlight on? 3 big things. First, it amplifies your emotions. Think of private self-awareness as a volume knob for your feelings. Imagine you get a stressful text message first thing in the morning. If you read it while walking through a crowded, busy street, your attention is pulled outward. The emotion is there, but it's competing with traffic, people, and noise. Now imagine you read that same message while sitting on a quiet train. The windows are dark, acting like mirrors. You catch your own reflection as you reread the words. Staring at your own worried expression makes you focus on the feeling of anxiety. Without external distractions, the worry spirals. It feels much more intense than it did on the busy street. The mirror amplified the emotion. This isn't just anecdotal. In a classic study by Scheier and Carver in 1977, they had people read positive or negative statements. Those who were sitting in front of a mirror, making them privately self-aware, felt the positive statements more happily and the negative statements more sadly than those without a mirror. The mirror turned up the volume on their feelings. Second, it makes you stick to your values. When you're privately self-aware, you become more honest with yourself. You act in line with your true attitudes. Imagine you're at a coffee shop. You generally believe in keeping things simple and you're trying to cut down on sugar. You're just waiting to order a black coffee. Low self-awareness. You're scrolling through your phone. The cashier asks, "Would you like to try our new giant caramel fudge frappe today?" Distracted, you nod and say, "Sure, why not?" You've just acted against your own value. High self-awareness. You're just standing there, quietly observing. The cashier hits you with the same upsell. 'Cause you're in tune with your own preferences, you immediately think, no, I don't actually want that. I want a black coffee. You politely decline. You act consistently with your true attitude. This has a powerful moral dimension too. Studies by Diener and Walbaum and later Beeman found a fascinating effect. They set up a situation where people could cheat or steal with no one watching. But if a mirror was placed in the room, people were significantly less likely to cheat. Why? Because the mirror forced them into private self-awareness. They were confronted with their own reflection, which made their personal moral standards suddenly very visible. Cheating would create a noticeable conflict between their behavior and their internal sense of right and wrong. Part 4. The consequences of public self-awareness. Now let's flip the spotlight outward. What happens when we become aware of ourselves as a social object? First, the negative, evaluation apprehension. This is the feeling of being on stage. And it can be debilitating. Imagine you're eating alone in a crowded food court. No one is actually watching you, but you feel watched. You worry that people walking by are thinking, why is that person eating alone? Do they have no friends? You might rush through your meal, scroll endlessly on your phone to look busy, or feel self-conscious about every bite. The enjoyment of the food is ruined by the focus on how you appear to the public. This is public self-awareness creating social anxiety. Second, the positive, social harmony. But this same spotlight is what keeps civilization running smoothly. Think about waiting in line. You're at a busy train station. You feel the presence of others behind you. You are aware that they are watching the line order. Even if you're in a huge rush, that public self-awareness, the knowledge that you are being observed, prevents you from cutting the line. It makes you adhere to the social norm of first come, first served. It maintains order. Part 5. The uncomfortable truth and escape hatches. So here's the thing. Self-awareness is often uncomfortable. Because remember that comparison engine? It usually shows us we're not as good, as calm, or as socially graceful as our standards say we should be. This discomfort is so real that people will go to great lengths to escape it. We drink alcohol to forget ourselves. We scroll on our phones to distract ourselves. We keep the TV on to avoid the silence. We do anything to turn off that internal spotlight because it can be painful to sit with the gap between who we are and who we think we should be. Part 6. The big distinction, state versus trait. That is self-awareness versus self-consciousness. Now, we need to clear up a major point of confusion. We've been talking about self-awareness as a state. It's a spotlight that can be turned on or off by a mirror, a quiet room, or a crowd. But some people have that spotlight permanently installed. They don't need a mirror, they bring their own. This is the difference between self-awareness, the state, and self-consciousness, the trait. Psychologists call these traits private self-consciousness and public self-consciousness. Let's break them down. On the left, high private self-consciousness. This is a person who is chronically introspective. They are always aware of their inner world. They are the ones who journal, who analyze their dreams, who know exactly how they feel about things. The positive. Because they know themselves so well, their attitudes are consistent. They are less susceptible to peer pressure. And, interestingly, research by Mullen and Sulls in 1982 found they are often better at detecting early signs of physical illness. They notice when their body feels off because they're so tuned in. Example, imagine a corporate lawyer who is high in private self-consciousness. Despite the prestige and money, she can't ignore the hollow feeling inside. She is constantly introspecting, and she realizes the work conflicts with her desire to help people. This awareness might lead her to quit and switch to nonprofit work. Her trait leads to a more authentic life. the negative, but this same trait has a dark side. Moore and Winquist found it's linked to a greater propensity for depression. Why? Because these people dwell. Example, after a difficult breakup, a person high in private self-consciousness doesn't just distract themselves. They spend hours alone dissecting every detail. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? They dwell on the negative feelings and the spotlight doesn't turn off. The sadness deepens into rumination. On the right, high public self-consciousness. This is a person who is chronically concerned with how they are evaluated by others. They are the curators of their own image. The trait in action, think about social media. A person high in public self-consciousness doesn't just post casually. They curate. They take 50 photos to get the perfect angle. They carefully craft captions. They delete posts that don't get enough likes. Their entire online presence is a performance managed for an audience. They are acutely aware that they are being watched, even when they're alone. So, to summarize the distinction, self-awareness is the state. It's temporary, can be triggered by a mirror, a camera, or a quiet room. It happens to everyone. Self-consciousness is the trait. It's a stable part of your personality. It's the tendency to frequently find yourself in that state, whether you want to be there or not. Part 7. Where does it all begin? The Rouge test. Before we wrap up, let's ask a fundamental question. When does this self we're so aware of actually appear? Babies don't have it. A newborn doesn't know where they end and the world begins. So how do we develop this sense of self? In the 1970s, researchers Lewis and Brooks Gunn devised a simple, brilliant experiment called the Rouge test. They secretly put a dot of red rouge lipstick on the nose of an infant. Then they placed the child in front of a mirror. An infant under 18 months would see the red dot in the mirror and reach out to touch the mirror, thinking it was another baby. But around 18 to 24 months, something magical happens. The child looks in the mirror, sees the red dot, and instead of touching the glass, they reach up and touch their own nose. They realize, that's me. There's something on my face. This is the birth of self-recognition. It is the foundational moment for everything we've talked about tonight. Before that moment, you are just a camera filming the world. After that moment, you are also an actor on the screen. Part 8. The takeaway. So, what do we do with all this? Recognize the spotlight. When you're in a quiet room and a negative thought spirals, recognize that your private self-awareness is amplifying it. When you're in a crowd and feel awkward, recognize that your public self-awareness is making you feel on stage. Just naming the experience gives you power over it. 2. Use the tools. If you need to make a tough decision, increase your private self-awareness. Find a mirror, sit in silence, and ask yourself what you truly want. If you're stuck in a spiral of rumination, do the opposite. Turn off the spotlight. Distract yourself. Call a friend. Watch a movie. You are allowed to step out of the glare. 3. Understand your wiring. Are you high in private self-consciousness? Honor your depth, but watch out for the trap of dwelling. Are you high in public self-consciousness? Use your social sensitivity to navigate the world, but remember that the audience in your head is often far more critical than the real one. Self-awareness is not good or bad. It's just a tool. It's a spotlight. And now you have your hand on the dimmer switch. Thank you.